Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Transcendentalist Tarot, and in this video we're going to discuss an important topic in astrology, and that is Atmakaraka, which means that your soul desire, your soul urges, and what is your soul purpose in this lifetime, and why are you here in this planet, and what is the purpose that you need to fulfill on the basis of the soul in this lifetime. So keep on watching, and we're going to explore many things about how do you find your soul planet, how do you find your soul purpose. Atmakaraka is about your soul desire and what your soul wants in this lifetime, and why are you here, and what are the things that you want to do on the basis of your soul. It describes your soul on profound level. So the Atmakaraka concept was founded by Parashar and then explored by Jaimini astrology. So it is a long-standing tradition in the Vedic astrology, and this concept helps astrologer to explore what the person should be doing in their lifetime. What is the career that will suit you the most, and what is the career that you will find a sense of fulfillment in? So when we find your Atmakaraka, we're going to understand what is your soul purpose, what is your soul desire, and what is your soul urge, and what you should be doing in this lifetime. So in order to find your soul purpose and your soul path, we need to go through three important. First step that you need to do is to find your Atmakaraka. And Atmakaraka is a planet with the highest degree in your astrology. So go to your natal chart and find out which planet is at the highest degree in your natal chart. For example, my Atmakaraka is Saturn, because Saturn is sitting at the highest degree in my natal chart. So Saturn will become my Atmakaraka planet, will become my soul compass, will become my soul planet, and my life will be defined by Saturn and the nature of Saturn. So Saturn will define my soul purpose. The second thing that you need to do is to locate your soul ascendant. And the soul ascendant is really important because it shows us how your soul is going to evolve and what your soul wants in this lifetime, and what is your soul purpose in this lifetime, and what you should be doing in terms of your career, in terms of your profession, in order to fulfill your soul. So in order to locate your soul ascendant, you have to see your Navamsha chart. You have to see your ninth harmonic chart. So calculate your ninth harmonic chart, and when you calculate your ninth harmonic chart, you need to locate the Atmakaraka. You need to locate where your Atmakaraka is in the ninth harmonic chart. For example, my Atmakaraka in my natal chart was in Pisces, and now in the ninth harmonic chart, my Atmakaraka is in Gemini. So Gemini is going to be my soul ascendant. So the position and the degree of the sign that the Atmakaraka planet is in the ninth harmonic chart is going to be your Atmakaraka planet. It's going to be your soul ascendant. So we have found out your Atmakaraka planet, and we have found out your soul ascendant, and now we're going to draw. After we have found out your Atmakaraka, and after we have located your soul ascendant, we're going to draw your soul chart. And how we are going to draw your soul chart, we're going to take the degree and the sign that the Atmakaraka planet was in the Navamsha chart, and we're going to place this this degree and sign in your natal chart. So my degree and my sign of the Atmakaraka planet is in the Navamsha chart was Gemini. So I'm going to take Gemini and I'm going to locate Gemini in my natal chart, and from that aspect, from that point of view, I'm going to draw my soul chart. So this is how you find out your Atmakaraka, how you find your soul ascendant, and how you draw your. In this video, we're going to explore how Venus is functioning as an Atmakaraka planet, how Venus will define your soul purpose. And we have to understand first what Venus is, and Venus has a wide range of themes to her. And she is not just the planet of love, but she is also the planet of war. Parashar in Vedic astrology has associated Venus with different symbology. The first symbology that he associated Venus to is the semen, and the semen deals with sexuality. Semen deals with impregnation and deals with fertility. So Venus has connotation with fertility. Venus has connotation with sexuality. And another thing that he associated Venus to is the bedroom. And the bedroom is not only a symbology of sexual intercourse and sexuality, but also the bedroom is an indication of pleasure, luxury, and comfort. Another symbol that Parashar associated Venus with is the minister or patron. So Venus had an important position in society back in ancient cultures. So Venus was seen as a minister and Venus was seen as a patron. And Venus was someone who had a powerful position in society. That's why Venus rules the aristocracy, rules artists, rules musicians, and rules actors, because these people are seen as influential in our modern culture. And another thing that we need to associate Venus with is the seventh house. And Venus deals with diplomacy, Venus deals with politics, and Venus also deals with a social interaction. So it deals with contract and also deals with how we interact on one-to-one level. And this is quite important in the domain of politics, because Venus rules the domain of politics. Venus rules the domain of justice. Venus rules the domain of laws, and Venus rules the domain of diplomacy. Another symbol that Venus was associated to is Mother Earth, because Venus is a planet that gives to us. Venus rules fertility, and she is the goddess of fertility. And she gives to human luxury, she gives to human wealth, and she gives them power, and she gives them money and luxury and jewelry and anything that is so these are the main association of Venus. And now we're going to go to the 4 case studies that I prepared for you guys in order to see how Venus functions as a soul planet or as a soul guide. So the first case study is going to be Jeffrey Dahmer, and the second case study is going to be Adolf Hitler, and the third case study is going to be Anais, and the fourth case study is going to be Elizabeth Taylor. So if you don't want to watch all the 4 of them, just choose one and watch it. That's okay. But it would be really great to watch all the 4 of them, because you're going to compare between each one of them and how Venus functioned from one person to the other. So let's get started with the first. So the first case study that we're going to see is Jeffrey Dahmer, and the reason that I chose Jeffrey Dahmer because many people see Jeffrey as someone who is a serial killer, as a cannibalist, and as a criminal, but they rarely see beyond this image of him and try to understand what really had happened for him to go into this direction. So when we're studying the Atmakaraka of Jeffrey Dahmer, many things are going to be revealed to us. And let's start with his birth chart. So he was born in Wisconsin in Milwaukee in 21st of May 1960, and he was a Taurus sun and Pisces moon and a Virgo ascendant. And when we're looking at his birth chart, the first thing that we can notice is that his Venus is the planet with the highest degree, which means that Venus is his Atmakaraka, or Venus is his soul planet. So Venus will become his guide in this lifetime, and will become his guide in his path. But Venus is in the 8th house, and Venus is in Aries, and this is a really bad position for Venus because the eighth house and Aries are the enemies of Venus. So the eighth house is the house of conflicts. The eighth house is the house of war. The eighth house is the house of destruction. The eighth house is the house of rape, of violence, of domination. So Venus does not feel at comfort. Venus does not feel at peace. Venus does not feel she can express herself in a good way in the eighth house, because Venus is all about love, it's all about peacefulness, is all about harmony, it's all about expressing one's sexuality in a positive way. But when you have Venus in the eighth house, which is a really dark place to have Venus in, Venus does not feel really comfortable in that house, which leads to negative results. So the person either has fear of intimacy, so this person does not get closer to other people or does not want to reveal their weak side to other people, and this person has fears getting close to another person because Venus does not feel at comfort in the eighth house. And another thing with Venus in the eighth house is that Venus can indicate some violent sexual tendencies. Let's not forget that the eighth house is the house of violence, and Venus is the planet of sexuality. So this will result in violent sexual tendency. This will result in a person having some deprived sexuality, and the person will feel as though that sex is a battlefield and that he has to dominate. And because the eighth house is the house of war, and again, Venus is the house of a sexual intercourse, so the sexual intercourse will become as a battlefield. The sexual intercourse will become like a war, and a person has to be either the dominant or the dominated. So right now we're going to locate Jeffrey Dahmer's soul ascendant, and in order to locate Jeffrey Dahmer's soul ascendant, we need to go to his Navamsha chart, or the ninth harmonic chart, and his Venus in the harmonic chart is in the 20-degree Sagittarius. So 20-degree Sagittarius is going to be his ascendant, his soul ascendant. But first we have to examine the aspect that Venus makes in the ninth harmonic chart. So Venus is in opposition to Jupiter and Ketu, and Venus is in the first house. So Venus in the first house is not a good aspect because the first house is the enemy house of Venus, and Venus does not feel good in the first house. It cannot express itself in a positive way because it is in the enemy house. But when we have it in opposition to Jupiter and Ketu, this also proved to be problematic because Jupiter and Ketu are powerful pair of spiritual liberation. Both of Jupiter and Ketu both of them deal with the idea of spiritual liberation. Both of them deal with liberating yourself from physical pain, from emotional pain, from material life, and go beyond the material life into attaining spirituality, into attaining peacefulness within oneself. So Jupiter and Ketu are all about being peaceful. It's all about being close to God and being close to the divine and being close to peaceful life. So when you have Venus, Jupiter and Ketu in opposition to Venus, which is a planet of sexuality, so this person will find it difficult to balance between his need to fulfill his own sexuality and to fulfill his own pleasures and to fulfill his own sexual needs, and against his need to become spiritually peaceful. So at once he wants to express his desires in a positive and a healthy way, but at the same time he feels conflicted because he is pulled to be spiritually enlightened. So this is a very difficult aspect to have. And a person does not know whether to become spiritually enlightened and let go of their sexuality, or hold on to their sexuality and then suffer from negative consequences. And in the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, he has chosen his sexuality, and that has led him to go through some problems in his life because he neglected that spiritual aspect and he neglected spiritual liberation, or he felt that he was at an great opposition between his sexuality and his spiritual liberation that led him to this conflicting way of living. So we said that his soul lagna, or his soul ascendant, is in 20 degrees Sagittarius. And when we place 20 degrees Sagittarius in his natal chart, it will conjunct Saturn. So his soul ascendant is in conjunction with Saturn. And when Saturn is in conjunction with the soul ascendant, it proves to be also a very difficult aspect, since Saturn is a planet of sorrow, Saturn is a planet of pain, and Saturn is planet of limitation and hardship. And with Venus as the Atmakaraka planet, this will prove to be very difficult. So he will feel that he is deprived of love. He will feel that he was not loved enough, and he will feel that he cannot express his love in a healthy way. And since Saturn is in the first house conjunction the soul ascendant, this means that he will find limitation when it comes to expressing his sexuality, when it comes to expressing his love, and when it comes to expressing his pleasure. So this is a kind of difficult planet, a difficult combination to handle. And this also means that during his lifetime, he was deprived of love. He was deprived of a healthy expression of sexuality and a healthy expression of intimacy and healthy expression of love. So he developed a kind of deprived sexuality. He kind of developed a deprived mind, and this kind of deprived sexuality had led him to become who he was. So now we're going to check where are the planets in his birth chart according to the point of view of the soul ascendant. And the first thing that we can notice in his in his soul chart is that Mars is in the third house from the ascendant. And when Mars is in the third house from the ascendant, this is a very good aspect. This is a positive aspect. And according to Parashar, who is the greatest master in Vedic astrology, he said that when a malefic planet like Mars is in the third house, this makes the person valorous. This makes the person courageous. So having Mars, which is also a planet of courage, a planet of assertiveness in the third house, that means that it will increase this characteristic. It will make him more courageous. It will make him more assertive. It will make him more inclined to be brave. And actually, he served in the military. He was in the army, and him being in the army mirrors the Mars in the. And the second aspect that we can notice in his soul chart is that his moon is in the fourth house from his ascendant. And when the moon is in the fourth house from the ascendant, it means that the person is really private, the person is really introvert, and the person feels a sense of obligation toward his family, and this person is wants to be around his family and is really family oriented type of individual. But Saturn was in square to the moon, and this proves to be another difficult challenging aspect for Jeffrey Dahmer, because Saturn is again the planet of limitations. Saturn is a planet of sorrow. Saturn is a planet of pain and grief and all of that dark element of life. And the moon represents our mind. The moon represents our The moon represents our mind, the moon represents our mother, the moon represents our family. So when we have Saturn, which is a heavy planet, square the moon, this means that the person will encounter some difficulties in their family. This person will encounter some sorrow, some grief, some pain when it comes to the family situation. And actually, the mother of Jeffrey died at a young age. And his father was known for being very strict. Not only that, but when we have Saturn with the moon, this means that the person's mind, which is represented by the moon, is always filled with grief, is always filled with sorrow, and is always filled with depression. So Saturn and moon is indication of depression. Saturn and moon is indication of grief and of pain and of heartache. And this is because he lost his mother at a young age, and his father was very strict, that he felt that he hadn't enough nourishment, and he wasn't made loved by his parent, or according to the documentary that I watched. So another interesting aspect in his birth chart is that Venus, Mercury, and Sun are all in the 6th house from the Lagna point of view. And when you have Sun, Venus, and Mercury in the 6th house, this means that this person is not sensible. This means that this person is indolent. This is what Parashar actually described the planets in the 6th house. He said the planets will become indolent or insensible. So the person does not sense the planet, or the person is deprived or devoided from the functions of this planet. So this person, for example, this Jeffrey Dahmer has the sun in his 6th house, which means he does not have a sense of consciousness. He does not have, to a certain extent, awareness of his actions. So that led him to becoming unaware of the things that he is doing, because he cannot sense his consciousness. He cannot attune to his awareness of himself and the world around, because the sun in the 6th house. And when we have Venus in the 6th house, this also means that the person cannot sense pleasure. This person has difficulty in tapping into their pleasure, into their sexuality, and they have a hard time into feeling excited. They have a hard time in feeling turned on. So that's why he had to go into extreme way in order for him to feel excited, because he could not have pleasure in a positive and a healthy way. So he had to go into this extreme way to feel excited. So this is concerning Sun, Venus, and Mercury in the 6th house. This is a difficult aspect, because the person is not aware of the function of this planet. The person is not aware of his rational mind. The person is not aware of his sense of identity, and the person cannot sense his sense of identity. It's like his sense of identity is lost, or he cannot tap into his sense of identity. And the other thing is that Venus in the 6th house means that the person cannot tap or cannot have a sense of their own sexuality, or they cannot easily be turned on. So Jeffrey had to go through extreme ways to feel sexual excitement. Another thing in his birth chart is that he has Rahu in the 9th house. So the 9th house describes our moral compass. The 9th house describes our ethics. It describes our good ethics. So when you have Rahu, which is a planet that is totally opposite of energy to the 9th house, it will create some problems, because Rahu is associated with demons. Rahu is associated with serpent. It's associated with evil. It's associated with thieves. It's associated with things that are rejected in society. It shows eccentric point of views. So when we have Rahu in the ninth house, which is the house of moral and ethics and having good ethics in life, this proves that the person either have a deranged mentality, or this person have some eccentric point of view in of life, or they have non-traditional point of view to life, or this person struggles to hide their own eccentric point of views, or this person kind of is a rebellion against the traditional beliefs that are prevalent in the society. And for example, Jeffrey Dahmer in one of his interviews, he claimed that Darwinism was one of the theory that inspired him to become the person who he is. And Darwinism is known for being a controversial theory in the field of science. So this actually shows in his life. Rahu in the ninth house is kind of someone who is really rebellious concerning his. The second person that we're going to study is Adolf Hitler, and I've chosen Adolf Hitler because his birth chart is similar to Jeffrey Dahmer, and you're going to see a lot of similarity between the two of them, and we're going to explore how his Atmakaraka Venus has impacted his lifetime. Another thing is that the quality of the video is different from the one in Jeffrey Dahmer's video, so I want to apologize if the quality of the sound, the quality of the video is different, but let's get into it. So a lot of us know who Adolf Hitler is, and he is quite famous figure in the history, and many of us know Adolf Hitler as the leader of the Nazi Party and the one who caused World War II, but not many of us know that he was actually a writer and he was a fan of art, and this kind of mirror his Venus as an Atmakaraka, because he was so much into art, he was so much into writing, and he was so much into music, that this shows us that Venus as an Atmakaraka actually manifested in his lifetime. So let's get started to examine his birth chart and see what are the important aspects in his birth chart. Then we're going to locate his Atmakaraka we're going to locate his Venus Atmakaraka, and then we're going to find out his soul ascendant, and then we're going to cast his soul chart. So Adolf Hitler was born in Austria in the 20th of April in 1889. So I have my notes here. So he was born in Austria, but he moved to Germany when he was at a young age. So one of the things that you can notice in his birth chart when we are examining it is that Venus is the planet with the highest degree. So Venus is at 24 Aries, and this is going to make Venus his Atmakaraka planet. This is going to make his Venus his soul planet, and this is going to make Venus his guide, his soul guide in this lifetime to actualize his destiny. So Venus in Aries does not do well, okay? Venus in Aries is a bad position for Venus, because the natural ruler of Venus, or Venus rules Libra, and Libra is the opposite sign of Aries. So when we have Venus in the opposite sign of Aries, that's going to cause a lot of problem for Venus. And when we have Venus in 24-degree Aries, this is similar to Jeffrey Dahmer. We said that in the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, Jeffrey was really selfish when it came to fulfilling others people's sexual desire. And this is the same case with Adolf Hitler. So Adolf Hitler was someone who was a bit of selfish because Venus in Aries is a sign of selfishness. Aries is a sign that cares only about itself. It cares only about its interest, and Aries does not care about what other people do, and does not care about what other people what other people think. And Aries is a sign that lacks diplomacy, and Aries is a sign that lacks tactics and lacks politics. But in contrary to Aries, we find Libra. Libra is quite crafty at diplomacy. It's quite crafty at interaction, and it's quite crafty uh, at peace, making peace. But when we have Venus in Aries, this means that this person lacks diplomacy, and this is what I wrote in my note. This indicates that the person is lacking diplomacy. This person does not know how to negotiate. This person does not know how to establish peace between himself and the other person. And when we have Venus in Aries, this means that this person is always trying to cause chaos, because they don't know how to negotiate, and they don't know how to make peace between them and the other people. This is a lack of politics and the lack of diplomacy. But this is the reinforcement of conflict. When we have Venus in Aries, it reinforces conflict. It reinforces wars, and it reinforces discord. Right now we're going to cast his Navamsha chart, and from Navamsha chart we're going to see where Venus is, and the degree and the sign that Venus is located in is going to be his soul ascendant, and it's going to be the ascendant that's going to determine to us what his soul path and what is his soul purpose in this lifetime. So Venus is in Scorpio. It's in 6th degree Scorpio, and again, this is a bad position in term of Venus. If we compare it with Jeffrey Dahmer had Venus in Aries, which was very bad because Aries is the enemy of Venus, and then he had Venus in Sagittarius, but Venus in Sagittarius is not that bad. However, Venus was in the first house in his Navamsha chart, and Venus in the first house is in the enemy house. But in case of Adolf Hitler in his natal chart, he had Venus in Aries, which was already bad, and it was the enemy of Venus. But also in his Navamsha chart, he has Venus in Scorpio, and Scorpio is also the enemy of Venus. So Venus rules Taurus and Libra, and Taurus and Libra are the opposite sign from Aries and Scorpio. So Aries and Scorpio are the enemy of Taurus and Libra. They are the opposite sign of Taurus and Libra, and they don't share the similar characteristic with Taurus and Libra. And having the planet that rules Libra and Taurus in the enemy sign, that's going to cause a lot of problem for this person. So one of the things that I wrote about Venus in Scorpio is that this Venus is heavily charged. It is more charged with emotions. It is more charged with anger. It's more charged with chaos than Venus in Aries. This Venus does not feel stability at all. This Venus does not feel at peace at all, because Scorpio is a sign of change. Scorpio is a sign of transformation. So this Venus is always undergoing some transformation and changes, and it doesn't feel at peace at all, because the life is always at the course of change. And this Venus does not know stability. Okay, this Venus does not know stability, and this Venus does not know how to find stability in her life, but she keeps on changing, and keeps on transformation. So the people with Venus in Scorpio are always trying to make changes in their life, or they're trying to incite some radical transformation in the way they are dealing with other people. So this represents some radical transformation in the way we deal with our social relation. And another thing is is prominent in Venus in Scorpio is that Venus in Scorpio is the destruction of harmony. So Scorpio is the symbol of destruction, and Venus is a symbol of harmony and peace. So when you have Venus in Scorpio, it means that peace and harmony is destroyed. But also Scorpio is a sign of recreation and the sign of regeneration and the sign of rebuilding. So peace is destroyed and security is destroyed for something else to be built. So Adolf Hitler, throughout his time, he was trying to destroy the status quo. He was trying to destroy the harmonious way of living in order to create and establish a new form of government. And one of the things that you need to know also about Venus in Scorpio is that Venus in Scorpio is quite paranoid. Venus in Scorpio does not feel safe because Scorpio is a sign of jealousy, Scorpio is a sign of paranoia, and Scorpio is a sign of enemies. And it's a sign of war. So Venus in Scorpio is always paranoid about what other people are doing, is always paranoid about what are the motives of other people. And Venus in Scorpio has the fear of others. So Venus in Scorpio is quite guarded. It does not let herself be shown to the world to a great extent because she is afraid of other people, or she is afraid that other people are doing something behind her back. So this Venus is quite guarded. You know, Adolf Hitler was a social person, as I read in one of the books, but at the same time, he was a bit guarded. And this has to do with his Venus in Scorpio, because he mistrusted some people in his social circles and he kept some things in his life private. So Venus in Aries and Venus in Scorpio indicates that this person is pretty much is going into the direction of war, is going into the direction of conflict, and it's going into the direction of intense environment. And now we're going to examine the conjunction and the aspect that Venus makes in the ninth harmonic chart. One of the important aspects that Venus makes in the harmonic chart is that Venus is in conjunction to Mars and Ketu. Mars and Ketu is one of the most destructive conjunction that someone could have in his birth chart ever. He could have in his natal chart. When 9/11 occurred, the terrorist attack that occurred in New York in the 11th of September, at that time, Mars was in conjunction to Ketu. And this conjunction has led to the terrorist attack to occur because Mars represents war, Mars represents conflict, Mars represents chaos, and Ketu is the planet of, it's not a planet, but we're going to consider it as a planet. So Ketu is the planet of destruction, basically. It is the symbol of destruction. So when we have Mars, which is the planet of war, with Ketu, the planet of destruction, you're gonna get a destructive and a powerful conjunction. And having Venus, your Atmakaraka, or your soul guide, or your soul planet, the planet that embodies your soul, in conjunction to Mars and Ketu, this means that your life will go through a lot of intense situation. Your life is going to go through some intense transformation, and this indicates that you're going to encounter a lot of intense transformations, and your life might get destroyed at one point and then be rebuilt again. This is a conjunction, Venus, Mars, and Ketu. This is a conjunction that upsets peace. and harmony, and it creates disharmony and it creates conflict in one's life. So this is a powerful conjunction, and this mirrors his war-like personality. This shows his dictatorship. This shows his powerful need to dominate and powerful need to create changes and transformation in his society. Let's not forget that Venus is the planet that represents social interaction and society and the norms of society. And when we have Mars and Ketu, which is the combination of destruction, conjunct into Venus, that means that the social norms are being destroyed by Mars and Ketu. So now let's go to his soul chart and see how the planets are positioned in his soul chart. The ascendant that shows us his soul purpose is a Scorpio, based on the Navamsha chart. So Venus in the Navamsha chart was in Scorpio, therefore Scorpio is going to be his soul ascendant. And from that degree of Scorpio, 6 Scorpio, we are going to place that degree in the natal chart. And when we place that degree in the natal chart, we're going to get the soul chart. So placing 6 Scorpio in his natal chart, we're going to get certain position, and these certain positions are quite important. So the first position that we're going to get in his soul chart is that Mercury is in the 5th house, and this is quite important aspect in the life of Adolf Hitler, because Mercury in the 5th house is the aspect of the writer. And it's the aspect that denotes writing abilities and writing skills. And let's not forget that Adolf Hitler, before becoming a leader of the Nazi party, he was a journalist and he wrote great amount of articles. And had he continued in writing and publishing articles, he would have been famous, actually, because the 5th house is the house of fame. And when we have in Mercury the planet of the speech in the 5th house, it means that his speech and his writing is going to be influential in his lifetime. Even though that he did not continue his writing, his career as a writer and as a journalist, his words were very powerful, that it influenced a lot of people, the way he spoke, the speech that he gave. So the speech that he gave were quite dominating, they were quite influential, and they were quite powerful, because the 5th house is a house of power, is a house of influence. So the speech is characterized by influence and power. So the second aspect that we're going to see in his soul chart, not his birth chart, in his soul chart, is that the sun is in the 6th house. And similar to Jeffrey Dahmer had also the sun in the 6th house. And we said that when a malefic planet is in the 6th house, it causes that planet to become indolent. And indolent means insensible. So the person cannot sense the presence of this planet. The person cannot sense how this planet function in his lifetime. So this planet will become subdued. This planet will become ineffective to a certain degree. And when we have the sun as the representation of the father, as a representation of identity, as a representation of the soul, and as a representation of the conscious mind, in the 6th house, it indicates that the father is absent. So Adolf Hitler's father died at a young age, I believe. And the sun in the 6th house is not aware of the conscious. It's not aware of its action. So the sun in the 6th house is not aware of its impact on life, on the outside environment. So at a certain point in his life, he felt that he lacked a sense of impact on his environment, and he felt that he was not heard. and he did not have a great awareness of his action upon his environment and what they were causing from chaos. So this has led him to develop a complexity. This has led him to go into extreme ways, to have a certain ego, to have that certain sense of ego and a certain sense of identity, because he felt that he did not have a powerful impact on his life. And another thing in his birth chart is that the Sun and Venus are, Mars and Venus are in conjunction in the 6th house from the Lagna point of view. So Mars and Venus conjunction is also a bad conjunction, because when a benefic planet like Venus is in conjunction to Mars, the positive influence of Venus is going to be reduced. And let's not forget that Venus is in the sign of Aries, and Aries is the enemy sign of Venus. So that's going to create a lot of chaos for him. So having Mars and Venus in the 6th house means that this person will be facing a lot of enemies in his lifetime, because the 6th house is a house of enemies, is a house of open enemies. And having Mars and Venus in Aries in the 6th house, it means that this person has encountered a lot of enemies throughout his time, and that's what made him be aggressive, because he did not feel really safe in his lifetime, and he felt that he had to fight his way throughout life. And that's what gave him that strong character and that dictatorship that he was known for, because he was ready to face a lot of his enemies and he was ready to face a lot of obstacles in his life. And another thing in his birth chart is that his Rahu is in the 8th house. And the 8th house is, as we said in Jeffrey Dahmer video, is that the 8th house is a house of conflict, the house of war, the house of destruction, the house of pain, the house of sorrow. And having Rahu is a planet of your destiny in the 8th house means that your destiny, or the life path that you're going to take, is going to be in wars. It's going to be in conflict. It's going to be in inciting changes in your life. So having the destiny point, which is Rahu in the 8th house, is going to cause a lot of upheaval. It's going to cause a lot of chaos for the person, and the person has to face some violent situation in their lifetime. But it also means that this person has a great capacity to change their environment, because the 8th house is the house of change and the house of transformation. It's where we store the power of transformation. So this person is learning how to handle their capacity to change and transform their environment. And the most important aspect in his birth chart is in his soul chart is that Saturn is in the 9th house. So the 9th house is the house of moral compass. The 9th house is where we have good ethics. The 9th house represents our belief system and believes it shows us what we believe in this lifetime, and how these beliefs and ideas affect who we are as individuals, because the 9th house is entwined. The 9th house is the friend house of the 1st house, and the 1st house is the house of the self. So when you have the house of beliefs and ideas and moral compass as the friend house of the 1st house, it shows that our beliefs are going to affect the way we are perceived in this world. And he had Saturn in his 9th house. And Saturn is a planet of limitation. Saturn is a planet of grief. Saturn is a planet of heartache. Saturn is a planet of war also. Saturn is a negative planet in general. It represents limitation. It represents rigidness. It represents a traditional point of view. And Saturn in the 9th house actually shows us his belief of racial supremacy. It shows that he had a rigid belief system. It showed that he had some strong and traditional point of view that certain race is superior than the other. But let's not forget that Saturn is a representation of social hierarchy. Saturn rules racial hierarchy because Saturn is the ruler of the people that are marginalized. Saturn is the ruler of the people that are considered as an outcast of the society. So when you have Saturn in the ninth house, it means that this person is thinking about the people who are outcasts, the people who are marginalized in this society. And this person tries to dedicate his lifetime to understand how society works on the basis of race and on the basis of social hierarchy. So this is in terms of Adolf Hitler, and his chart really, his soul chart really showed us why he became the dictator, because his Venus, his soul planet, was badly aspected. But in the same time, we see that he was really a fan of art. He loved art and he loved writing and he loved to be a performer. Actually, when he was given his speeches, he was not only given speeches as a leader, but he was also performing. And that was the impact of Venus. So we're going to move into another case study. So the other case study that we're going to undertake also is going to be Anais Nin. And Anais is a famous poet and a feminist that really influenced the way we view women and the way we view feminist literature. And she was one of the greatest poets of her time. And so Anais was born in the 21st of February 1903 in Paris, France, and she was a sun in Aquarius, and her Venus was in 29 Aquarius. So the reason that I chose Anais is that she is different from Hitler and Jeffrey Dahmer. And her Venus was not in a bad position as it was in Jeffrey and Dahmer, but her Venus was in a neutral position. Venus in Aquarius is a good position because Venus here is in the friend sign of Libra. Aquarius is the friend of Libra. And Venus is the ruling planet of Libra. So having Venus in your friend sign is going to produce some good effects. So Anais had a really good Venus. So let's talk about how it influenced her. So the first thing that we can notice about her Venus, it is in the sixth house. And the sixth house is about service. The sixth house is about giving to other people. And the sixth house is a house of Virgo. It either represents giving to other people, or it represents restraining the act of giving. So someone might be generous and give and serve other people, but at the same time someone restrain their act of giving and servitude. And when we have Venus in the sixth house, it can mean two things. It means that this person is willing to please other people sexually. This person is willing to serve other people in a sexual way. And Venus in the sixth house, it also means that this person's lifetime and this person's servitude is going to be about entertaining people. It's about pleasing other people. However, at the same time, having Venus in the sixth house means that this person is going to learn how to restrain their sexuality, and this person is going to learn when to give to other people sexually and when to stop giving to other people sexually. And Anais in her lifetime to explore this theme of sexuality and when to give to other people sexually and not when to restrain someone's sexuality. And this is again the sign of Virgo, and a Virgo is a representation of a virgin. So having Venus which is a quite sexual planet in the house of Virgin, so this is learning how to restrain someone's sexuality and using that sexuality for creativity. And another thing about Venus in Aquarius, it is quite eccentric. The way it expresses her sexuality is quite eccentric. Then the way it views love, and the way it views intimacy, and the way it views art is in an eccentric way. And Anais had an eccentric and a different way of expressing art, of expressing her writing, and expressing her sexuality. I mean, she seduced her father. However, Venus in Aquarius means that this person does not accept the traditional sexual norms, but go beyond to explore sexuality in a new vision, in a new way of seeing things. However, Venus was in a good sign. It was in the friend sign of Libra, but in the 6th house is not that good, because Venus here does not serve herself. Venus is also a planet that seeks to serve her own pleasure. And in the 6th house, she is giving a lot. She's giving a lot to other people. She is serving other people, and she's forgetting about herself. However, right now we're going to see her Venus in the 9th harmonic chart. And when we see her Venus in the 9th harmonic chart, the most important thing that we need to do is to see what is the sign that Venus is in. And that sign is going to be her soul ascendant. So her Venus in the Navamsha chart, or the harmonic chart, is in the 27th degree of Gemini. And this is quite significant, because Gemini is a sign of speech, and Gemini is a sign of writing, and Gemini is a sign of communication. So having Venus in Gemini means that she dedicated her life to writing, and she was fond of writing. So it means that her soul planet expressed herself in writing, in communication, in speaking, and so on. And when we see the aspect that Venus is making in the harmonic chart, it is in the opposition to the Sun. So the Sun is in Sagittarius, and the Sun is in opposition to Gemini. So this means a conflict or opposition. So we have the Sun, which represents your identity, which represents your soul, and which represents where you are heading in this lifetime. And Venus represents your need to please yourself. It represents your sexuality. It represents your feminine side. So your sexuality is completely different than your identity. So you find she found a hard time to accommodate her sexuality to who she was as a person. So her lifetime or her personality was defined by her sexuality. Her writing was defined by the aspect of sex and the aspect of sexuality, and trying to understand these themes, because the Sun is your identity, and any planet that is in contact with the Sun is going to define the Sun. It's going to define your identity. So having Venus in the Sun, with the Sun, it's going to define the Sun in terms of love, in terms of sexuality, in terms of art, in terms of literature, in terms of music, and so on. And now we're going to see where are the planets in her soul ascendant, in her soul chart. So we said that the soul ascendant is in Gemini, because the Venus is in Gemini in the 9th harmonic chart, and we take that sign and its position, and we place it in the natal chart. That we can notice about Anais in her birth chart, in her soul chart, is that Mercury and Saturn are in conjunction to the 7th house. And the 7th house represents the house of marriage. The 7th house represents your desired partner. And when we have a Saturn and Mercury in her 7th house, it means that she is fascinated by deep thinkers, because Mercury is about thinking and the Saturn is about depth. So these two combination indicates deep thinking. So she was interested in someone who was a deep thinker. She was interested in someone who has an old soul. She was interested in having a partnership that will make her think in a deep way. She was interested in philosophers. She was interested in psychoanalysis, and she was interested pretty much in psychology. And in her diary, she wrote about the great minds that came in that period. She wrote about Sigmund Freud. She wrote about Henry Miller, and these people, Henry Miller, Sigmund Freud, are known for being quite profound in their theories, and this has impacted her because she was seeking someone who was profound in the way they're thinking, and she desired that in her lifetime. But let's not forget that Saturn represents her father, and having Saturn in the 7th house, which is the house of marriage partner and your sexual partner, it means that she was attracted to her father, and that's what led her to look for her father and seduce him. But another thing that we notice in her soul chart is that the Sun and Jupiter are in the 8th house from the Lagna. And as we said before, the Sun is not, the 8th house is the house of war, conflict, and the house of violence. But let's not forget that the 8th house is also the house of depth. It's a house of transformation, and it's the house of deep emotions. So having the Sun and Jupiter in the 8th house is quite positive. It brings out the positive aspect of the 8th house. So this person has a profound mind. This person has a psychologist's mind. This person thinks in a deep way, and having Jupiter in the 8th house means that this person will explore the hidden issues in life. So she was interested in exploring things that are hidden, and psychoanalysis is always about hidden aspect of the individuals. It's about the unconscious, and the 8th house rules unconscious. She was so much interested in trying to understand the depth of the soul. And since the Sun represents the soul and the 8th house represents depth, so that explains why she was interested in understanding the depth of the soul. So combining that, the Sun, Jupiter with Mercury and Saturn, she was someone who was very profound, and in her lifetime she sought someone who could complement that. She wanted to meet someone who also wanted to make her feel understood. Another important thing that in her birth chart, the most important thing actually, is Venus in the 9th house. And the 9th house, we spoke about it in a great deal, and the 9th house is a house of your moral compass. The 9th house is a house of your is your philosophy, is your ideology, is your belief system, is what you believe in this lifetime. And having Venus, the goddess of love, the goddess of womanhood, in the 9th house, it means that your philosophy is going to be centered around being a woman. It's about understanding what being a woman means. And it also means that her philosophy and her writing was always centered around the theme of sexuality and exploring how to be a woman in modern society. And this shows her feminist writing. Having Venus in the 9th house reflects her feminist writing, but it also reflects the divine feminine, her writing about the divine feminine. And another thing that is quite important in her soul chart is that Ketu is in the 10th house, and according to Parashar, When Ketu is in the 10th house, it means that this person will be deprived from paternal bliss, which means that this person will be abandoned by their father, or this person will be deprived by the love of their father. So this is quite applicable for Anais. And she was deprived from the love of her father, and she was abandoned by her father, which made her in her lifetime look for a father figure, because we have Saturn in the 7th house, and Saturn is the father figure, and the 7th house is your marriage partner. So she was looking for someone who could substitute her father, and she was abandoned by her father, and that caused her a lot of pain. So that is a impactful thing in her life. And this is a quite interesting birth chart. It reflects her philosophy. She was someone with a great philosophy. And she was really interested in exploring sexuality. And this is the thing about Venus as a soul planet. If we compare her and Jeffrey Dahmer, both of them had heightened sexuality. Both of them were interested in exploring the theme of accepting their own sexuality and becoming someone with someone who can express their pleasures and desires in a healthy way. So when you have Venus as your soul planet, it means that your lifetime will be focused on this theme. Your lifetime will be focused on understanding how can you express your desires in a healthy way. So this is for Anais. Now we're going to move to another case study. The next case study is going to be Elizabeth Taylor. And Elizabeth Taylor, as many of us know who she was an actress, and she was one of the best actresses that came in that generation. So her Atmakaraka Venus is in 24 Pisces, and this is a powerful position for Venus to be in, because Pisces is a sign of exaltation of Venus, and Venus feels really at ease when she is in Pisces. Venus loves Pisces because Pisces is all about peace. Pisces is all about art and music and being artistic. Pisces is all about harmony, and Pisces is a quite romantic sign, and Venus loves that about Pisces, and she can express herself in a good way, unlike what we have seen with Jeffrey Dahmer, Adolf Hitler, and relatively Anais. But here with Elizabeth Taylor, her Pisces was exalted, and that helped her to express her feminine side very positively, and she was one of the most beautiful actresses that came on the screen. But now we're going to see where is her Venus in the Navamsha chart. And her Venus is in the 8th degree of Aquarius, and that 8th degree Aquarius is going to be her soul rising. So we're going to examine the aspect that Venus is going to make to the Navamsha chart planets. So Venus is in conjunction to Sun, Ketu, and Mercury. So this is a difficult aspect for Venus because Ketu is a planet of destruction. Ketu is a planet of letting go. Ketu forces us to let go of things that we hold inside of ourselves. Because if we keep on holding on, Ketu will come and destroy everything in our life. And let's not forget that Elizabeth Taylor had a strong Ashleisha Nakshatra, and Ashleisha Nakshatra is about holding things within. It's representation of the serpent, and the serpent is guard. The serpent guards his own treasures. But since we have Ketu here, conjunction Venus and Sun, this means that she will be forced to let go in her lifetime. And this reflects her love life, because she had gone through so many ups and downs in her love life, and she had lost her husband, and she had gone through a lot of divorces. And this is a reflection of Sun, Venus, and Ketu, which reinforced her to let go and to not hold on to her ex-lovers. See her soul chart, and we said that Aquarius is going to be her soul ascendant. So we're going to see from that point of view, from the Aquarius ascendant, where the natal planets are going to fall. Now, when we place 8-degree Aquarius in her natal chart, we're going to see that the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are going to be in conjunction to the soul ascendant. Not only that, but Rahu is also going to be in that position. So Mercury is in conjunction to her soul ascendant. And what that means, it means that according to Parashar, she was going to be skillful in art, trading, and this person is going to be educated and intelligent. So Elizabeth Taylor was an artist, she was an actress, and Mercury with her soul ascendant reflected that. This is a person who is intelligent, this is a person who is educated, and she was skillful in acting, and she had won many awards. And not only that, but trading, she was someone who was into jewelry. She was very into collecting jewelry. And another thing is Mars in conjunction to soul ascendant, and Parashar said that the person will live through fire, and fire is a symbolic thing here. Okay, it's symbolic, does not mean that she will live through fire, but she will live through passion. She'll be very passionate for life, and this is a reflection of her many affairs and many of her relations. She was really passionate about what she did, acting, and she was also passionate about her relationship. And another thing is that her Sun is in conjunction to the soul ascendant, and when the Sun is in conjunction to the soul ascendant, it means that the person will be engaged in royal assignment. And royal means fame, means power, means power, it means fame, it means royalty. And she portrayed Cleopatra, the queen of Egypt. And even that she did not rise into maybe power and fame as described in the Parashar, she portrayed a queen in her films. And then we have Rahu and the Sun in the soul ascendant, and Parashar said when Rahu and the Sun are in the soul ascendant, it means that the person will be afraid of snakes, and the person will die because of snakes. So snakes here are also symbolic. The snakes here are symbolic of transformation, of change, of radical events in life. So she'll be afraid of change and transformation. And in her lifetime, she had gone through many terrible events, and her husband died, and etc. She had gone through a lot of divorces. And with that, she had to go through a lot of transformation. But her need to hold on to her past acts and her need to hold on to past memories had led her to become afraid of the snakes, to become afraid of change. But Ketu is in conjunction to her Sun and Venus, which forced her to let go. And another interesting thing is that Venus is in the second house and it's exalted. And Venus is in its natural house. The second house is the house of Venus. And Pisces is where Venus is exalted. So she was very into art. She was into jewelry, and she had a beautiful face. Let's not forget that second house is the house of face, and the face, and Venus is beauty, so she had a beautiful face. And Venus in the second house means aristocracy, means power, means fame, through beauty, through luxury. So she accumulated a great wealth in her lifetime. But at the same time, when we examine her 6th house, her 9th house, and her 12th house, we see that she was struggling spiritually. She was someone who was trying to attain spirituality, because Jupiter in the sixth house means that Jupiter is not operating very well, and Jupiter is not working in as it's supposed to be. The person does not have a strong philosophical foundation, or the person is seeking to have philosophical foundation in their lifetime. And with the moon in the ninth house, this person mind is occupied by finding spirituality, because we see that Saturn in the 12th house, and Saturn in the 12th house means that the person is struggling to find spiritual attainment. The person is struggling to find spiritual attainment. This person is struggling to move beyond physical restriction to attain spirituality. So she was someone who was struggling between her materialistic needs and her spiritual needs. So she was always trying to accumulate money. She was trying to get lovers, but at the same time she was struggling to become a peaceful person and be at peace with herself. This is very interesting, because Venus here as her soul planet not only has shown that she became an actress and she was involved in art, but it also showed her inclination towards expressing her sexuality. It showed as the same thing with Jeffrey Dahmer and Anais, that she was exploring her romantic life. She was exploring herself as a woman. And also with Venus in the Venus here as a soul planet is similar to Adolf Hitler, because both of Elizabeth Taylor and Adolf Hitler were both fan of collecting art. They were both fan of collecting items. For example, Elizabeth Taylor was a fan of collecting jewelry, and Adolf Hitler was a fan of collecting portrait and paintings. So this is a common thing for Venus, for people with Venus as a soul planet. Thank you for watching. So let's move to another thing. When we try to compare between the four people that we studied in the video, we're going to see there are commonality between the four of them. For example, we have Anais and Jeffrey Dahmer, and having Venus as a soul guide means that your life will evolve around sexuality. Your life will evolve around expressing your sexuality in a healthy way. Both Anais and Jeffrey Dahmer were very focused and concentrated on exploring these themes and throughout their lifetime. Even though that Jeffrey Dahmer had a bad Venus placement, and that affected his expression of healthy sexuality, Anais had a good Venus, and she expressed her Venus in a positive way through writing. And another thing that we notice about Venus is that Venus as a soul guide deals with wealth, deals with accumulation of wealth. And this is true in the case of Elizabeth Taylor and Adolf Hitler, because both of them were fascinated with collecting jewelry. Both of them were fascinated in collecting items. Like in the case of Elizabeth Taylor, she was interested in collecting jewelry, but in the case of Adolf Hitler, he was interested in collecting portrait and art. So these people are very into art. They are very into wealth. They are into accumulating wealthy items. So people with Venus as their soul planet, you will find them having tons of jewelry. You will see that they have a lot of portrait and painting. You might see them, they are in a position of many cars, many houses, and they collect makeup, and they collect different things that pertain to wealth. And Venus as your soul guide means that you guys are going to walk into this lifetime exploring sexuality, understanding how to explore love and pleasure in a positive way. Many of you are going to be marriage therapist, or therapist that deals with sexual themes. but also it means that you are going to either be an actor or an artist or someone who is interested in music, but this is all depends on your placement of Venus and how Venus function in your lifetime. But pretty much, if you go back and you see all the 4 videos, you see that there is a common theme between all of them. So thank you for watching. I hope you like the videos. If you like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe. And please give me a feedback. I would love to hear your feedback if you have Venus as your soul guide. And if you want to book a reading and see what is your soul guide and what is your soul purpose, you can just read the service down below.